Hello, guys. We are live today for Carnivore Team GB live Q&A segment number 12. Joined today by myself, Coach Stephen, and of course, the lovely Ben Hunt. Apologies for anyone that's been looking forward to seeing Richard talk today. He's got other errands to tend to. Well, it sounds like fun, actually, whatever he is doing. And Phil, his wife, has an issue with her car, needs a key. He has to drive out to and get it, something like that. I don't know. But anyway, you got us free tonight, so we'll be able to give you some pretty detailed answers, hopefully. So everyone in the panel currently right now, feel free to chime in with any sort of answers you do have. But before we get started, I believe Stephen does have a presentation for us if he has that at hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think you've already seen it, actually, Jonathan, because I did it on my live stream on Sunday, but a few people missed it and wanted to know about it. So, yeah, I can share screen if I'm allowed to. And it's literally the proof that that eating protein, the protein doesn't become blood glucose. Simple as that, really.
I'm going to like this one.
You liked this one, did you?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. All right. Well, it's really simple, and it also explains the misconception of why people think that protein turns to glucose. Because when they did this study, they actually assumed, researchers at this point, they just assumed that if you ate protein, about 50% is probably going to become blood glucose, right? Which is really evident from how they set up the study design. I mean, obviously, they at least they published it and proved themselves wrong completely and utterly. So that will make sense of this first chart. So what they did is they gave these people 80 grams of glucose, and they looked at their blood glucose. So they took a reading, and obviously them ingesting 80 grams of glucose put their blood glucose up. Let's use two different words. Say put their blood sugar up. All right. So they ate 80 grams of glucose and their blood sugar went up. So if they thought that half of your protein is going to do the same thing, they therefore gave the participants 160 grams of protein. Okay. Assuming, therefore, that 80 grams would be glucose. And, of course, that did not reflect what happened. In fact, you got this flat line of blood glucose or blood sugar being normal. So that was with lean beef, egg white, casein proteins. And then let's go to the next chart, which was just lean beef. And it's really pronounced. And again, using the same thing, 66 grams of glucose. Made the blood sugar go up, as you can see. Let me just try and, it's difficult with someone on two screens. So yeah, the blood sugar went up. You can see 165, just over. And then the dotted line, or the broken line down here for the bottom, is for what happened when they ingested lean beef. And again, you've got the flat line. Well, that's pretty conclusive, I would say, personally. I think that's conclusive. But you know what it's like in nutrition science. People want it to be more nuanced. All right. So, okay. One thing people need to know about is what they used to think of diabetes as well. It'll make sense at the end of this why this is important. They didn't think that there was two types of diabetes. Type 1, which is you can't produce insulin, and or not enough insulin, and type 2, which is more to do with metabolism of carbohydrates and the problems with that, which might be too much insulin, not enough sensitivity, the cells just locking you out because you're mixing fats and carbohydrates, whatever you want to call it. Type 2 diabetes they didn't know about, and type 1 they didn't know. They used to call it juvenile onset diabetes if you had type 1, and they used to call it adult onset diabetes. I'm actually old enough to remember those phrases. So the next study you're about to see was 15 subjects with diabetes and 4 healthy medical students, which might be an oxymoron, a healthy medical student, but there you go, because they wanted to see if diabetes had any effect. And just so you know, the participants were eating somewhere in the region of about a pound of meat, actually. But let's have a look what happened. So going again to this graph, they had 53 grams of glucose, and that shot the blood sugar up. And then we've got bread, and we've got apple, bang, 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 bang. And then we've got lean beef down here. Look at that. So even if you had type 2 diabetes, it's still bad to have bread, apples, but not to have beef. That's not bad. And the blood urea nitrogen is in there, just showing you that urea and nitrogen waste products are protein metabolism. So it just shows that. And it was the same. So that was the healthy students, and it pretty much the same.
So,
with
sorry, Stephen, is that saying that the excess proteins, if there are excess proteins, they're getting converted to urea rather than glucose?
No, it's just just the normal process of what's left over, basically. And the reason I include it is from my phlebotomy side of things. People say, "Oh, my blood urea nitrogen's gone up." Yes, because the normal level of waste from protein metabolism will go out via the urea. So yeah, and the same thing. You can say pretty much the same thing happened with the diabetics. So there you go. Now, the reason I mentioned type 1. Sorry, got to go into the more nuanced, by the way, because this surprises people. This was actually in the American Diabetes Association publications. Yes, the Diabetes Association of America actually published this, and it said the same thing, but they use what's called doubly labeled protein sources. So they actually label the nitrogen and carbon. So they know for a fact they can actually trace the protein from the egg to the people. And then they do what's called a glucose flux test, which is like an interval, so millimoles per minute. And the black circles are blood sugar not from the eggs, even though they've ingested the eggs. And this down here is the doubly labeled carbon and nitrogen. So you can see that out of the blood glucose, it's not even 5% of it is being turned into sugar. So Cammy's saying, I heard a couple of carnivore influencers say that 50% protein turns to glucose. That's over 100 years old, that misconception. This is absolutely proves that is not the case. The original study and this. So it's literally rubbish. This is hard science. This is doubly labeled tracing of proteins. So if that was true, this glucose flux would be, in the 0.3, 0.4 range. And it literally would shadow this, but sort of halfway between the bottom and the top. But it doesn't do that. So this is known. And we also know, and this is where I've got my type 1 diabetic sort of hat on, because it's also down to a thing called the glucagon insulin. Actually, let's get that off the screen and we'll just talk about it if you don't mind. So let's get rid of that if you can. Jonathan, can you get rid of it? Right,
There
cool. Yeah. So what happens is you can be insulin dominant, which is what most people are, and the glucagon is in the background. And when you have a bit of protein, what happens is it utilizes some of the insulin because, it's 5 times the amount of energy needed to digest the protein. And also you want the insulin to absorb the protein. So what actually happens, the little bump in insulin is noticeable, but also what happens is glucagon goes up and starts to produce a little bit more blood sugar to stop you being hypoglycemic. So it isn't protein that's making that happen. It's the absorption of protein and the dominance of insulin, meaning that glucagon will just bump up your blood sugar to stop you going hyperglycemic. So we know this is a fact because with type 1 diabetics, if there's any listening or if they want to comment, when you ingest protein, when you're type 1 diabetic, you have to consider your insulin as well as with carbohydrates. So that's because they're glucagon dominant, which is not a good thing. That's their problem, partly their problem. They haven't got enough insulin, I suppose is a better way to look at it. So, it is a myth about this 50% of it. And that's been knocking around since, I think, 1913 or something. But it's been proven categorically. And to be even in the American Diabetic Association webpage is just, remarkable, really. Anyway, I hope that was all right. I hope people like that.
Yeah, I definitely liked that. I think perhaps the issue with what they may be saying, like the people that say, 50%, whatever. I think what they really mean is about half of amino acids are gluconeogenic. So if you had every amino acid in a line, put it through the body, some of them can, as the opportunity allows itself, turn into glucose. I think it's probably maybe a misrepresentation or a misunderstanding on their part. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, that's where it comes from. Yes, because amino acids are a substrate that the liver can use to make blood glucose. Absolutely. Yes, some of them.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did the test myself on like 550 protein for months on end. My blood glucose was always in a healthy range. I'm not suggesting people would do that, but I'm saying I have done it. My blood glucose was never significantly elevated. It was never more than like 7.5, something like that. I test it morning, during, after, just sporadically as well. Wouldn't just do it at the start. I do it, after a few months. So I never seem to get significantly elevated blood glucose. And that was even through having dairy as well. So for me, it's quite interesting. I didn't have any sort of deleterious effects. What I did find was if I had, say, after that last competition where I ate all that food, I had like a Chinese or something, as you do. I was never satiated, but the point is I measured my blood glucose and it was like 9 or 10. So just to show you, glucose will raise glucose. Protein, probably not much, just a small little bump like you demonstrated. So it's a really good presentation. Does Ben have any questions at all?
No, that's good. No. I heard recently that they're identifying that type 1 diabetes has at least partial autoimmune factor. Can you guys confirm that?
Well, yeah, they believe it's an autoimmune condition. Yeah, simple as that, really. But that isn't known. I mean, the thing is, the alleged science around a lot of things, when you dive into it, it's all, a lot of it is speculation. Sorry, my dog is in need of attention, so we'll be back in a second.
Okay, you go for it, Stephen. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah, my dog's in the other room. He was slid now next to me and on the pillow. He sort of positioned the pillows like an L shape so he could get his head right in there. But yeah, that was an interesting little presentation. Watching it a second time over, I kind of understand it better now. It just makes more sense to me. But yeah, it's interesting what they have to say. Like, I understand, like, when you contrast this, like paleo medicine is saying, drop your protein as low as possible, increase your fat, getting that sort of, 82% fat, 18% protein by caloric value sort of range. They seem to be successful in doing that. Do you think there's something else at play here, Ben? Like, why is the high fat protocol working so well for autoimmunity if Stephen's presentation's demonstrating otherwise, the protein, the glucose isn't such a significant issue?
Yeah, I mean, according to Zafir, it's all about healing the gut. That is hands down the reason. You need to get enough energy in. But no, I don't. Beyond that, I don't really understand. Yeah, any further. But I'm not the sciencey type like you guys say. Oh, you're muted.
Oh, it's a weird one. I couldn't really unpack that one. All I know is both seem to work. I've met people before with digestive distress eating very high protein or very high fat or any combination of it. So it depends where someone's health journey is. Perhaps maybe that's got a bit better indication of what might be more useful. But yeah, I will say I do feel better with very high fat. I will say, I'm sure anyone else does. But that's just me. Should we get some questions now, unless you got anything else to add?
Yeah, good.
Nice one. So we've got a question from Matthew. Thank you for joining today. Appreciate you being here. The question is, why do some veteran carnivores not add salt to their meat and still thrive? Do you have an answer for that one at the moment?
That's a really interesting one. I actually mentioned that on my my daily diary video today as well. I mean, Anthony Chafee says now he doesn't tend to add salt to his meat at all. But I'm now on day 30 of strict carnivore, meat, fish, salt water. And one of the things I noticed that I mentioned in my diary video today is the first two or 3 weeks, I was drinking a lot more water and wanting a lot more salt. And I was adding salt to all my water as well. But now I'm kind of wanting less fluids and less salt as well. And I can't really explain it. I can't really explain why it would take months for your body electrolytes to become balanced and saturated. It just seems too slow to me, but it appears to be the case. And maybe there's an efficiency issue. Maybe it's something to do with the kidneys working better, because I mean, certainly ancestrally, there are theories that we became human by hanging around waterways and having a lot more access to salt and the sea and seafood as well. And then once we grew our big brains, thanks to a lot of oily fish, we managed to go inland. I'm not sure that passes the smell test for me. There are lots of kind of theories about the aquatic ape stuff. It is very interesting. We could go into that. The idea, we've got webbed fingers, webbed hands and feet, and our fingers and toes go wrinkly when they're exposed to water, submerged in water for a while, which actually helps you to grip onto slippery rocks and stuff like that. All the hair in our bodies points in the direction of water flow if we were swimming through the water, which is not the same with any other ape, and babies can hold their breath underwater instinctively, stuff like that. So it's a fascinating theory. But no, I mean, look, our ancestors managed to thrive with probably relatively scarce access to salts, other than through their kills, including blood and organs and stuff like that. So it would make sense, just on a purely common sense level, that there are enough electrolytes in meat once you're adjusted. But why that works, I have no idea.
Stephen, do you have a take on it? So the question is about long-term carnivores and not particularly adding much salt to their meat. Like, how are they adjusting? What are they doing? Is it something unique to them? Is it something you've noticed with people after a few months or years down the line?
Yeah, I just think everyone's looking at it from the wrong end of the telescope. It's we're adapting to how we should be. So people coming to carnivore have adapted to the wrong way of eating. So everything's out, and this is how we should eat. So it's like to me, it's a normalization of what would have happened. Pretty much like Ben just said. We never had supplements. We would just go and kill some animals. And we would eat them, or we'd eat eggs, or we'd have some dairy or whatever. And that's obviously not how I grew up. I grew up on grains and skim milk and freshly squeezed orange juice and everything out of season, and the wrong way. So I had to adapt. So it's a miracle, actually, up until 50, that I wasn't that bad. But I was bad. I mean, I was pre-diabetic, had a CAC score of 639, lower left quadrant pain, thought I was going to die of colon cancer. So, I just feel that eating this way is just so species appropriate. It is simply the proper human diet. So I think we just normalize, and, when you're eating a high level of glucose, I've bored people with this fact, but it's really simple. For every glucose molecule, you have 3 of water. And if you lose water, you lose glucose, you lose electrolytes, because electrolytes also attach to water. So this high level of glucose was never available for us. So we weren't depleting ourselves of electrolytes in the first place. Well, if you do this for 50 years, it's going to take a while for your body to get back to the right way of operating. It really is that simple for me. It's just, this is where it should be. So I feel you need less and less salt and less supplementation once you've adapted to being, normal, for want of a better word, or species appropriate. But I think I might have to go. Sorry, I know we're really thin on the ground tonight. My dog's got spooked by something and I can't leave him. But there is a question there about fructose and fatty liver if you want me to just quickly address that. Someone
Yeah,
worried
sure.
about.
I'm just still on the salt thing before we move on. Something I'm a firm believer that the better attuned we are to our bodies, just listen to your damn body. You know, like I mentioned this to Anthony because there was some wombat on Facebook trying to claim that Sean Baker's neck injury that he sustained doing jiu-jitsu and got literally pile driven onto his head by a bloke of similar size with both their weight, and Anthony's ankle injury that was sustained in a foul in rugby where somebody literally broke his foot off at the ankle, that they were a result of dehydration. I mentioned that to Anthony, which he thought was very amusing. And he said, look, it's not that I'm avoiding salt. He says, I salt to taste. And right now, this, you know, my body is, if your body needs salt, then you will seek out salt. If it doesn't, you won't. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, mammals are known to walk miles for salt because it's essential. Yes, fructose does cause fatty liver. The study is uric acid induces hepatic steatosis by generation of mitochondrial oxidative stress. But basically, really simply put, they added fructose to liver cells and it formed triglycerides. So they actually saw it happen. So that's pretty straightforward. And then the mechanism by which this works is fructose metabolism creates a metabolite, which is uric acid. So the uric acid being a waste product. But anyway, yeah. And this is where ATP... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, and well, Robert Lustig's got some really good slides and explanations on that if you look him up on that. But I think I remember him saying that 20% of any fructose that you ingest is always, so minimum 20% is converted into fat in the liver, and there's no getting around that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's been observed and measured, and it's dose dependent as well. So if you double the amount of fructose, you get double the amount of triglyceride accumulation. So yeah, I mean, it's now again nailed on. And they use staining and they use tracing as well, so they can see what's going on. And there's plenty of studies about that. And it's definitely a cause of fatty liver. I mean, it's an indirect cause because it's the metabolism of fructose, but we knew that anyway, that it causes byproducts that then cause the fatty liver. If you didn't have the fructose in the first place, you wouldn't have the metabolism of fructose causing byproducts, if you see what I mean. So the byproduct, and I'm not saying uric acid is bad, by the way, but it's within the process of what's going on. The byproduct, like I say, the metabolite of fructose in the liver that causes the fat accumulation is uric acid. And you can prove that again because you can put uric acid into a liver cell and it will increase fat. So people say, well, it's a high uric acid is a problem. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's a metabolism of fructose within the liver. That's the important bit. So this is why you get non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, not because you've got high levels of uric acid. It's because you're eating a lot of fruit or fruit smoothies or those sort of things. And kids now getting non-alcoholic fatty liver. It's the fruit. It's the fructose.
Oh, and also sucrose, because sucrose is one glucose molecule, one fructose molecule joined together.
Yeah.
High fructose corn syrup is also one glucose and one fructose with a different bond. That's the only difference between the two. They're still separated in your digestive system into a glucose, which, by the way, every living cell known to science can use glucose. But there is no cell in your body other than your liver cells that can do anything at all with fructose, as I understand it. You can't use fructose directly as fuel unless, you know, the hepatocytes have to convert it into other forms. So do you think that liver cells identify fructose as a toxin in the same way that they would identify ethanol as a toxin, and they're just trying to get rid of it?
Oh, well, I mean, the liver is there to detox, to metabolize, however you want to see it. I don't think the cells think, "Woo, this is a naughty thing. We've got to break this down quick." But I mean, it knows what's toxic, and so if you put alcohol in there, obviously it will deal with that. It seems to deal with that first. It does seem, and this is where people talk about, oh, well, glucose is the preferred fuel. We see in nutrition science, preferred means it's the first thing dealt with, which doesn't mean like the preference as in, oh, my preference for meat is a ribeye, that's my preference. No, it's preferred, its preference to do that is because it's the most toxic. So alcohol, you could argue, if you're talking in the way that vegans and vegetarians and fruit lovers do, actually alcohol is a preferred source of energy, because if you ingest alcohol, that will be metabolized first. So anyway,
but there's also a myth about that, because I had some vegan loony again saying to me that or it's someone on my channel, because on my chest channel I'm saying about how I'm eating only meat for 90 days, and they said, oh no, you need your carbs because the brain prefers glucose. And I mentioned that to Chafee as well the other day. He says it's bollocks, it's not true. He said, when there are ketones available, 70% of your brain cells will suck up any ketone going before they will use glucose. So actually, it's not even true. Your brain cells and also the cells of your heart will use ketones in preference to glucose. So that's just a myth. Another myth.
Yeah, sorry, I have got to go, but I'm going to just address something Jacqueline said, because the last message there. I was not talking about uric acid levels in your blood serum. I was talking about within your liver. So don't worry about high uric acid levels if you have a blood test necessarily, because it's also an antioxidant. Creatinine levels tend to go up because you're eating more protein, and that is a waste product of protein metabolism. And that's one of the things actually in the talk I'm going to do at the end of March. I'm going to talk about how the bloods are different when you're carnivore. For one of the most simple reasons is you are eating more protein. So you're not in the normal ranges, because the normal ranges assume you don't eat much protein. So it really is that simple. And as Ben pointed out in that graph, well, there's, the blood urea nitrogen's gone up. Is that important? And I was saying, no, it's not. It's just showing you that you will produce slightly more blood urea because there's more nitrogen, because you're breaking down more protein compared to an average person who doesn't eat much protein. But anyway, I really have to go. Sorry, I'm a bit worried about my dog. So, sorry, it's only been half an hour, but at least I turned up. The other two, skiving, going to the cinema or whatever,
There'll be punishments. I appreciate you coming on, Stephen, and thanks again for the presentation. That was highly informative, and it'll give people some different insights to perhaps what they're used to from everyone else that's saying the wrong stuff. Cheers.
All right, bye.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, that was interesting for sure. Now, for me, like talking about, do we need glucose? Does the brain? Yeah, the brain does need glucose, but as I'm sure everyone that's watching this knows, we can get it for other sources. Gluconeogenesis, what is there? Lactate, glycerol, fatty acid chains, all sorts of things. Amino acids. You can break all these things down to turn to glucose. If you give your body enough protein, it will do exactly that. I'd think that most people probably are eating too little protein to do that in some cases. In contrast to that, I looked at this myself, and some people do apparently have a faulty gluconeogenic pathway. So I had to do a lot of digging to find this out, a serious amount of digging. It took me several hours to work this out. But apparently there's a 45% lower, lower effectivity of gluconeogenesis in people that are hypothyroid, that are unmedicated. So if the thyroid's out, they're not taking exogenous thyroid medication, they seem to have an issue with that. So they will experience a benefit in how they feel through having some exogenous carbohydrates. But that seems to be the only reason why someone would take it, in which case I'd say see a doctor and get on the right meds for your condition. I know people, I've got a lady that's going to come on my channel soon. We recorded a good video. I've been coaching her for over a year now. She's got hypothyroid. She's had pretty much all of her glands removing all sorts of things, loads of autoimmune diseases, but she doesn't need to eat exogenous carbs. And in fact, she's more strict than pretty much anyone else I know. So it's quite telling. You don't have to default to these sort of things because you can't sort yourself out. There is a way to fix these things. The body will adapt if you give it time. Just quickly on the point of like the salt intake. My salt intake is probably about a third of what it used to be just before I started a carnivore diet. And it seems to be creeping down a little bit still now even. So I don't always actually salt my food. I say I probably do more than not, but not a lot, if that makes sense. So it's more just bit here, okay, I'm done. That's about it.
Is
also
that
sweat less.
Driven by just taste and wanting salt, or have you got any kind of calculations behind that?
Sure. So I do measure my intake of salt, but it's not like I do it every day. It's more, okay, at this point in time, I'm doing roughly this, and I sort of work it out that way. So I am salting to taste. I'm also drinking a lot less water than I used to. For example, back in the day, I'd drink 9, 10, 11 liters before a bodybuilding competition. I'd have about 15 grams of salt in a day. I have about 4 to 5 grams right now. And I'm also not drinking that much water because I'm fat adapted and I'm not obsessing over drinking loads of water in the gym. So I've got like a little bottle here, I think. So this is my gym water bottle. And I fill this up to about here. So it's about 300 milliliters. And that's all I need to stay hydrated for about a 3-hour gap, which includes before, during, and after the gym. That's all I drink. That seems to be about where I land. I sometimes add a pinch of salt to it as well. Not always. I add taurine, helps with electrolyte balance and things like that. But yeah, it does seem to be like a lot of people do have that kind of experience. Because I am physically active, I do have a lot of mass. I do supplement with salt. I think it'd be unwise for me to deliberately reduce it for the sake of reducing it, just to see what happened. I think that would be a bit unsensible for me. But Ben, do you do much with salt at all? I mean, I know it's quite early days for you being like really strict. So
yeah, well, yeah, like I was saying, the first 2 or 3 weeks, I was doing a lot of salt and a lot of water as well, and I would add 3 grams of salt to a pint of water, and that seemed right to me. It was like brine, it was like the saline drips that they give you in hospital. Not that I've ever drunk that, but yeah, I was just saying earlier on that I noticed that my requirement for salt, my taste for it is going down and down. I know I'm still adding some, but I don't think you can overdo it because I think you'll just expel what you don't need. As long as you've got the right balance. It's more about balance than it is about, so if you're having just table salt, which is sodium chloride, you're going to have far too much sodium.
Yeah, I think you'll just drink more water as well. Like if I had Richard's electrolyte supplementation, his potassium, calcium, or magnesium, whatever he's having during the day, I'll be drinking as much as him. I have no doubt, but I don't have that inkling to drink it, so it makes sense to me. But yeah, it's very interesting. Now Cammie's just put in the chat about, so I know she suffers with hypothyroidism, but she won't be given the meds basically. So she has an issue where she can't follow the diet because she can't correct her thyroid in capacity or lower ability. So it's very interesting. Some people can't follow the carnivore diet for obscure reasons. I made a video the other day. I think it's like 6 reasons why the carnivore diet won't work for you or might not work for you. And some of them were quite surprising actually when I looked into it in a bit more detail. But yeah, it's quite cool, quite interesting to see. But yeah, I think a lot of people will benefit from this sort of way of eating. Even just going a bit closer towards animal based is much better in my opinion. I'll move on. Should we move into the next question, or do you have anything else to cover?
Yeah, let's go. We can delete the ones we've done as well. That'd be easier to follow.
Yeah, there's only 2 of us now, so I don't have to listen in so much to them. So I've got a question from Herbert. Thank you for joining. When wife eats beef, by the end of steak, she starts to hiccup. Any idea? I think he means by the end of eating, she starts to hiccup. I think it had something to do with the acid within the gut and vitamin D status. We do need vitamin D to be sufficient, adequate to supply our body with different things, and for the flappy bit in our throat to function. Basically, if we're deficient in that, we do have people with a problem where they can't actually take down the food properly, and it won't keep those gases down. If that makes sense. I'm trying to speak at like the right level here so people don't get confused with like complex words. But that seems to be the case. And we can see this in elderly people that do hiccup, choke, and cough on meat, for example, a lot. I suspect a lot of the time it's because they're deficient vitamin D. It could be an issue with acid levels. If you're having loads of water with your meal, that will dilute your stomach acid. That will cause that valve to open back up, or at least not be functioning properly. So it is a muscle in your throat. So it is something that needs to be taken care of. So I wouldn't, whatever they're doing right now, I'd look into it further, because it's not nice to be hiccuping, because that could end up in someone choking. But do you have any comments to add, Ben?
I thought hiccups were like an uncontrollable spasm of the diaphragm, rather than anything going on in the throat itself. But I can't. I've got no insights on it. Sorry.
Yeah, it could be that. It seems more likely than not it's that. I'd look at, my first port call would be to look at how much they're drinking around meal times, get a vitamin D test just to rule that one out as well. Then if that doesn't resolve it, look further down the line at different diagnostics, see if a muscle's not working properly or something. Maybe they've got a hernia. I don't know. Not my area of expertise really, but okay, we'll get to the next question from Nick, and he's asked, or he or she is asking, I've seen a lot of people touting the benefits of consuming animal brains, both desiccated and in raw form. Any credence in consuming brains? Do you have much experience with that one?
No, I've never eaten brains, actually. I know my wife has, but again, common sense says that brains contain everything that your brain needs to build brain out of. So it can't hurt. You'll have lots of DHA in there. You'll have cholesterol in there. Not that you need, a lot of cholesterol in your diet, but DHA, EPA, and a bunch of aminos as well. So it can only be good. I'm sure our ancestors will have eaten every single bit. Plus, of course, the theory is that Australopithecus, Australopithecus, apparently their brain, so this is our pre-human ancestor, their brain remained kind of unchanged for an awful long time. And then in a short period of time, it tripled in size. And the understanding is that that's because they went out onto the plains and figured out how to smash into bones using rocks as hammers, and so they got into the long bone, so they got the bone marrow, again rich in fat, and into the brain cavity to access the brain matter as well, the skull cavity. So that's how they grew big brains, by eating brains.
That makes sense to me, because I have seen like just in fleeting glance of like documentaries where they said, oh, this is an animal skull. It's nearly always got a giant crack in it, so it tells me these people didn't just kill it for the sake of it. They obviously tried to abstract every single bit of nutrition they could. I have had brain myself. I'd say it tastes quite bland. It doesn't taste how it looks at all. I'd say it tastes like maybe like egg whites, like scrambled up. The texture's quite similar. I would not overcook it because it's horrendous. Over here, we struggle to get appropriately sourced brain, as in you do have to go to some butchers, which maybe they don't, how to put it, they don't slaughter the animal in such a way that I'd quite like personally. So there's that to look at. It's quite affordable considering what it is, and I would have it again, but it isn't delicious, if that makes sense. It's not something you'd go out, some people love the taste of liver, some people love steak and eggs. It's not quite like that. It's quite a unique taste in that. It's somewhat bland. You wouldn't have it daily, I don't think, but some people do. I think it's good for you. Our next question is from Matthew. And have you had a phase without salting your food? No, I think I'd last a few hours and start thinking about it too much.
Yeah, same here. Yeah. I mean, my favorite description of salt, or definition of salt is the thing that makes food taste horrible when it's not in it.
Mm. Yeah, that is true.
Unlocks all the other flavors. And unless I have had some times though when I've had like fried eggs and I've put too much salt on it, and it's literally made me gag. There have been times when I've jumped out of my seat and thought I'm going to go and hurl. I'm running to the toilet. But yeah, that's happened to me 2 or 3 times. Just too much salt in one sitting. But no, again, we just salt to taste. There's nothing really to stress about with salt, as long as it's decent salt. Don't use table salt.
Yeah, use a good quality salt, guys. Stuff with all the other stuff in it, not the basic sodium chloride table salt. It's not got enough stuff in it, in my opinion. Now, the next question is from Brian, I believe. We've answered that one already. Apologies. The next one actually is from Andre. So thank you for joining. What would be a good time frame to assess the effectiveness of the carnivore diet? I'm now in week 10. I'm a healthy individual who started carnivore diet for body recomposition goals and hunger satiety. He said in the chat as well that he listened to Dr. Barry say do it for 90 days and see what happens. That's his time frame that apparently he suggests as being a good amount of time to sort of identify any benefit. What do you say, Ben? Press the mute button. I always do that.
Sorry, I'm muted instead of unmuted. Yeah, I've been high fat, low carb for a couple of years. Probably 90 to 95% carnivore in the last year, and only strict carnivore for 30 days. So that's exactly why I'm doing 90 days, and I'm already feel like I've broken through something after 30 days in terms of just kind of stability. So yeah, Andre's got 3 weeks to go to 90 days, and please come on and report back. But I mean, the benefits, according to Anthony's been doing this on and off for 20 odd years, pretty strict for 3+, and he's saying, the benefits keep coming. So I don't think there is a time frame. It's just an ongoing rolling event. Yeah,
what I would say is I've got a video coming out on my 4-year carniversary, what have you. So that'll be Friday this week. It'll come out, so keep your eyes peeled for that video. I go through my past history, current history, what I found useful, and in that video I did actually say at different time points, this will happen, this will happen. I'd say for about 2 to 3 years in, that's the point where a lot of my chronic fatigue started to go down. So that's one thing which did take time. Now, people out there that might be listening to this, watching this, if they've ever experienced chronic fatigue, it's not easy to get rid of. You can't just, take a supplement. I tried all that stuff myself. It takes time, and I really do think it comes down to the gut permeability stuff, deuterium stuff, sunlight stuff. Some of these other hacks come in, but I'd say the longer you stay strict to the carnivore diet, the better it will fare you in the long term. I'd say after about a year, you probably get 90% of the benefit. That'd be my guess. I don't know. But by 6 weeks, you should notice your digestion's a lot better, sleep more restful. Most people report back sleeping for a shorter duration of time, but better quality.
I'm already
if you've got skin issues.
Yeah.
I'm
going to bed at 9 o'clock. Sometimes I'll wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning. But when I wake up, that's it. That's me up now. But yeah, so 6 hours seems to be a good minimum now.
For sure. Yeah. I think part of that as well is you're not loading up your stomach with loads of crap your body doesn't need. So in the past, when I'd have to sleep longer, it's because my body's trying to keep me really still. So all of its intention and focus was on digesting that food, because it doesn't want all this food in me for as longer than it has to be. So with this way of eating, obviously, I mean, you're looking really chiseled now, like compared to even like a few months ago, you look much more ripped, sort of thing. So you're eating to be at the weight you're meant to be at, the healthy, sort of day-to-day weight, the cruising weight. So I think that comes into it as well. But sleep has been a big one for me. And sometimes I wake up at like you 3 or 4, and I'm like, I could literally go to the gym in like 20 minutes, like no problem. So very interesting. Now the next question's from Tim. Hi guys, thanks for this. And Ben, can you tell us what the greatest insight is since you started your 90-day challenge?
Wow. Well, of course, disclaimer, I'm only 30 days in. The cravings go away. I mean, we've just mentioned sleep. I think that's one of the major ones. But I mean, also, I was coming off drinking alcohol fairly heavily, and also probably as a consequence of alcohol and drinking coffee. I was big on my coffee as well. I'd have like 2 or 3 pots of coffee in a day. But I think that one of the biggest things is my energy is like that. And I don't mean it's flat. I mean, it's good throughout the day until I get tired. Like last week, I had a night where I think I woke up at 2 a.m. and that was it. I'd had like 4 hours sleep and it just wasn't enough. But you know what, that day, I mean, normally under those circumstances, I'd be straight downstairs, kettle on, grinding coffee beans, and I'd be like, throughout the day. And then come 2 or 3 o'clock, I'd go like that, right? It wasn't like that at all. And I didn't have any coffee, perfectly level, normal energy throughout the day. 8 o'clock in the evening, poof, hit the wall, straight to bed. That was it. And it's night and day. But if you want to follow, go to bigfat.substack.com, and you can see my first 30 daily videos on it. They're only about 2 minutes long each, but I'm recording this diary video every day and talking about my energy levels and talking about the cravings as well. I think that's the main thing. It feels like me now. I feel like this is who I'm meant to be, rather than being a junkie that's constantly getting pinballed between carbs, alcohol, caffeine, all of this backwards and forwards. And I know the addiction. The coffee thing really is that the appeal of that is now really, really low. Alcohol as well. It's like the thought of being drunk is like, I don't like. I quite like the idea of having a beer and enjoying a beer, but I don't want the idea of. It's just not, the idea of being drunk has got no appeal right now, really, at all. So yeah, it's funny how you change, but it's more about just stripping away the things that aren't you, and these legal drugs, which is all they are. Caffeine, sugar, I think, is probably the worst of them all. But yeah, 3 weeks or so is about what it takes to knock the sugar on the head. There's really nothing appealing about sugar now. Yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question, but hopefully.
Yeah, I think that's a solid answer. That's all we can really ask for. How do you feel right now? What have you done since? So you just keep doing it, pretty much. But yeah, do check out his Substack as well. What is that again? Just so the guys can hear it again.
Yeah, it's bigfat.substack.com.
Brilliant, nice one.
In the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Now, next question's from DC. How would you apply and dose BPC 157 for gut issues? I would do it 200 to 300 micrograms 2 to 3 times per day. Or you can do it in one hit, maybe in the evening after your dinner, something like that. That's if you're using a capsule. If you're using an injectable version, probably quite similar, maybe a bit less, maybe, I don't know. That seems to be what a lot of people tend to use in bodybuilding circles. For me, that's something I'd use if I know my immune system isn't very good at that point in time. For example, a lot of stress. I've used that for the last few days pretty much because not my party, but there's a party at my house the other day, Saturday night. I ended up getting 3 hours sleep. So I used that one. I was actually able to train in that morning with about 3 hours sleep, have 2 consultations, record a video, and do an interview. So that's quite telling as how effective the diet is in combination with these sort of drugs. But a lot of these bodybuilders are using these things in circles to kind of like mitigate the damage they're doing from the diet. But I'd rather them just see them just do the diet right, Doesn't make much sense. But have you heard of this one at all, Ben?
Nah, it's not my area, mate.
Yeah, it's a useful biohack if someone's absolutely struggling and they have the money to buy it. I'd use it. It's not medical advice, but it does work and it is natural to the body. If you're supplying your body with more of it, that's all I'd probably say. Just make sure you source it out the correct way.
Might be worth asking, next time Richard's on as well, see if he's got anything to add to that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Now next, well, just relates to what Andre said earlier about how many days carnivore to notice anything. And he said he's looking to extend it for another 60 days. That'll be quite a few months down the line from what he's been currently doing. It seems not to be as effective for people who are healthy. I don't know, but maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe it is not for me. I've not experienced any of the benefits to carnivore. My sleep is the same, energy is the same, and nothing magical different than any other diet. I lost some weight, mostly water. He's lost a lot of weight, but he's also lost about 8 pounds of actual fat with about, I think, 12 pounds of water, but from previous conversation. So he has lost a good amount of weight. It's not like he's failed. What do you think, Ben? Have you come across people that just don't seem to have like noticed a subjective benefit?
No. It's kind of new to me, this one, I have to say. Sleepers are saying, no, it's been starkly different in my experience. Even from going between, from 90 to 100, has been really noticeably different. So no. I mean, maybe
I've not
we're
had
just
this myself.
very balanced before and able to handle, the amount of toxins that were going in.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, illness presents itself in different ways, doesn't it, Ben? I mean, I could present as fit, healthy, I don't know, good at gym stuff, whatever, good at eating, good appetite, but I might have this underlying condition which I don't know about and no one else knows about. So what we can say about the carnivore diet is it will most likely or most probably stave off that issue that may arise down the line. Now, I hope it doesn't for Andre. I hope he doesn't have any health issues. But you don't know what's coming around the corner. My stepdad recently had some different tests for cancer, and that could be around the corner. So we don't know what's going on inside the body. So unless you had every scan known to man, which would probably damage you in the long run anyway. I mean, some of these scans that we have in our body, they're not absolutely innocuous. They do damage the body to some degree in some way. You just wouldn't know. So I think even if Andre stayed, lost a bit more weight and said, oh, I like my sourdough bread in the morning, I'm going to have that with toast, whatever, fine. Maybe you do that, you stay animal-based, perhaps. Maybe that'll work for you. But I'd continue doing it. It's been so long now that you've been doing it for this long, it's like, why stop? You don't know if, like me, it takes 2 to 3 years to get rid of that chronic fatigue, or at least alleviate most of it. So you just don't know until you try it.
Well, chronic fatigue is also an autoimmune condition as well, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people I know I talk about myself, but that's how I relate to people best. So I'm just going to give my example. So, diagnosed with autism, very close links with intestinal permeability, poor methylation pathways, poor antioxidant capacity, poor sleep, poor mental health outcomes. Not great for people that try to be optimistic, but I'm doing everything I can with the time I've got, with the diet I'm using, to sort of stave that off. So I think for me, the difference for me as an individual would be vastly different to a lot of other people. The same thing with Phil. I know with yourself, like with the gout and Phil's arthritis. Yeah, he eats some bread, some chips, maybe that'll come back over in the day. For me, it seems to be more of it takes a couple of days to come back sort of thing. A lot of these issues that I have, but these sort of symptoms represent themselves in different ways. So for me, if I eat something I'm not really meant to eat, around my eyes, around the corners of my eyes, they get a bit dry. I feel my face get a bit puffier. My stomach will swell out very slightly more than usual as well. My stool frequency will go up. My thirst will double overnight, pretty much. So they're little signs that I know something isn't quite right, or I've done something I wasn't meant to do. I know if I keep doing that, I'm neglecting myself, neglecting my body, and neglecting my health. So I'd consider that to be quite selfish for people that do care about me, that want me to feel good and thrive. That's just my opinion anyway.
Just going back to Andre's question as well, and to follow on from what you said, Jonathan, that you don't know how your body heals, and your body, it's like, for example, people who do stem cell therapy, thinking, oh, I'm going to take stem cell therapy for this issue that I've got, my knee's wonky or whatever. But it may be that the stem cells, adult stem cells going around your body identifies where they're most needed. So there could be something brewing deep inside that you have no idea about because there's no manifest symptoms, and that your body decides that is the priority to heal, and it doesn't heal the thing that you want as well. So yeah, I think just patience for that. But on the subject of it, maybe it's not right for me. It's the natural human diet, right? But at the same time, you decide what makes you happy as well, and that's what we coach on the Big Fat Challenge, is just take full responsibility. So if somebody says, "Oh, I caved, I ate a big packet of chocolate donuts," then we don't say you've failed. We don't say you've fallen off the wagon. You've jumped off it. That's fine. You're allowed to jump. You know, you're not required to stay on the wagon. What we do say to people is be 100% responsible for the choice that you made, which you made for your own reasons, and that's no one else's business, and be responsible for all the outcomes of it. And say, that's what I chose when I chose the donuts. And when you do it that way, without shame or guilt, then you take it as information. You're doing an N=1 scientific experiment. You're becoming your own researcher, and that will then give you useful information that you can then use to make whatever choice you want to make in the future. And if it's donuts the next day, it's donuts. Just own it completely. So you never know. There's one more question from Ben as well in the chat. Have you picked up on? Yeah. We've got a few minutes, haven't we?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't have said better myself. Like, you know, if anyone that is listening to this or watching this, you know, if you've ever consulted with us, we always give you what we think is best practice. We don't think, oh, this person's going to cheat on their diet, so we're going to say something that's a bit easier for them to follow. This is the optimal thing you can currently do right now. If you go off it a bit, okay, fine. Like Ben said, that's your choosing. You've stepped off the wagon. Maybe you've reduced your outcomes, whatever they may be, by 1% over 100 days. Okay, fine. Well, don't forget about the 99%, the rest of that time. So yeah, that's a really good speech, Ben. I enjoyed that. Next question is from Ben Duckworth, different Ben. Do you know of some ways this diet can help someone who has cerebral palsy? Do you know anyone, Ben?
I don't know anything about that. I know MS, also being autoimmune, it can, but a lot of MS people seem to have quite a close relationship to their disease as well. Cerebral palsy, I don't know anything about it, I'm afraid.
Myself, I've not met anyone with it. I think it's a bit like the autistic cohort. That perhaps you don't see them very much. Perhaps they can't, you know, access, you know, a keyboard to type a question to come onto these channels to do an interview. Autistic people tend to not be very sociable. So, you know, people with those, those more, not minor, but like slightly more unique kind of difficulties, you're going to struggle to find anecdotes from those people, but it doesn't mean there aren't people out there that are doing it, that are finding a benefit. They just probably haven't spoken about it yet. But I'd think it would help strengthen the person if that was an issue. In terms of nerve damage, it could help strengthen them in that way. I'm almost certain that they'd have a better quality of life by doing the carnivore diet. Reason being, because everyone I know that follows it feels better, especially after that 2-3 month sort of transition period. So that's what I'd go for. I mean, I don't think there's any hard science on it, but I would look at perhaps if you go on PubMed, Science Direct, type in cerebral palsy, keto diet, you might find something. You might find something which kind of supports it if that's what you're looking after. Apologies, I can't give you much more information on that one.
Yeah, I know Natasha Campbell McBride says that everything starts in the gut. So, like Jonathan says, it can't hurt. I mean, keto diet's been used for a century for epilepsy and seizures, for example. But yeah, that's one to look into. But
for sure, yeah.
I can't remember having ever seen anything about carnivore and cerebral palsy.
I think there should be maybe like a forum online, like you call it like Carnivore Stories or something, like a website. Submit your anecdote, put tags in it. Phil Escott, psoriatic arthritis, Jonathan, autism, or something, you know, just anything that relates to it. And I'm sure there'll be so many people that are just happy with how they feel that they'd be willing to donate a few minutes of their time just to fill that sort of thing in. I don't know if that's, I know they have some sort of website like that where they sort of have a few profiles of some people, but it's not that in depth in my opinion. I think it's called Meattrition, maybe. Might be it. Anyway, guys, we're probably going to wrap that up now unless Ben has anything to say or final thoughts.
Nah, got nothing left.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining, everyone. If you want to follow myself, you can see my stuff on the screen there. Ben as well from the Big Fat Challenge. Phil Escott as well has a YouTube channel. Also, Coach Stephen, who was on earlier, you can check out his page, Coach Stephen Thomas BSc. And also Richard Smith at the Keto Pro, who is not here tonight. I'm going to give him a shout out anyway because he's spending it with his daughter, which is very, very, very nice to see.
Cute. Oh, it's probably worth giving a shout out to for our second War on Health conference as well. First one was a great success. Unfortunately, well, Jonathan, are you 100% not able to make this one, or we?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to go to it, and I really wanted to go. I asked around to find a way to get to it, but it's not going to be possible at the time, just with everyone doing stuff at that period of time. But
yeah,
I'm definitely looking to do the next one.
Yeah, it's March 30th and 31st, again in the Peak District. It's a 2-dayer now. We are going to have Stephen there talking about what your doctor doesn't know about blood results could hurt you. Richard's going to be there as well presenting. We've got Dr. Javier Clements from Paleomedicina is going to be there. Possibly Sarah Pugh, unless she's got to fly out to another conference in the US. Ahmed Malik's going to come back. He may even do a couple of sessions as well on navigating the British healthcare system as well. Phil will be talking. I'll be talking. We're going to have 2 Q&A panels, and we're going to do something special as well on the Friday afternoon for anyone who can make it up early. And we're going to have great food, and we're going to have great times. So if you can make it, just type in waronhealth.uk into your browser and put in the code EARLYBIRD, all in caps, if you want to get £50 off from the thing. But we've still got nearly 60 days until the event, so we'll bore you about it every week between now and then.
Exactly. That sounds like good fun. Also, I'm absolutely ashamed I can't be there. So that was one of my 2 goals for this whole year. One, I can't really disclose it right now, but the other thing was speaking in front of a lot of people in a public setting. So I'm gutted. But for anyone that is there, that is following my channel, I highly recommend going to that. If you're into like bodybuilding stuff, Rich will be there. It'll be a good opportunity to meet new people. Lots of networking and also very educational as well. It's quite an all-star lineup if you ask me. So it's a shame I can't just be there and like listen or stream it in, but never mind.
And Andrew Scarborough as well. He'll be coming talking about his the fact that he's apparently been dead for 10 years with a
ghost
glioblastoma that he was told would kill him in a matter of weeks or months, and here he is, still there, still doing presentations. If you've not heard his story, you need to hear it. It'd be great.
Exactly. Excellent. Cheers, guys. Take care.